that we will know how truly marvelous you are. What a wonderful prayer to start off. So, I'm not going to lie, guys. Whenever I agreed to preach on this Sunday, I didn't know the passage that I was going to speak. And when I found out what it was, I went, oof, Stephen, you're going to make me work for this, aren't you? So, I was definitely a little intimidated by the passage. Not one that I've heard very often in my life being preached on. And so, my knowledge base, my background on it was not very deep. I had to go real fast. Just that was it. But you know what? As I was reading, and I'm going to use this right now because I don't want to get it wrong. As I was reading, it made me think about the times ahead. We all want to be faithful aspect. No one really knows when. But what would happen? Who would you spend your time with? What would you do? What would you say? And it made me wonder, it reminded me of a book that I read in high school by John Green. John Green's an amazing author. He does young adult novels, but I think that a lot of people can relate to his novels, young, old, no matter what. And in this novel called Looking for Alaska, the main character, Miles, is this awkward, gawky kid that doesn't really have any friends. And he spends most of his time memorizing the last words of famous people. And that made me laugh. So I wanted to read some last words for you, because I found some pretty funny ones, and some pretty good ones. So, a composer, Jean-Philippe Rameau, he objected to a song that was sung at his bedside as he was dying. And he said, "What the devil do you mean to sing to me, priest? You are out of tune." And then he died. Frank Sinatra died after saying, "I'm losing it." Marie Antoinette stepped on her executioner's foot on her way to the guillotine, and her last words were, Pardon moi, monsieur. So polite. Composer Gustav Mahler died conducting an imaginary symphony, and his last word, Mozart. Louise Marie Theresa, the Countess of Versailles, before she died, she let one rip, and her last words were, "Good. A woman who can fart is not dead." I liked that one. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was the writer of the Sherlock Holmes series, he died after looking at his wife and saying, "You are wonderful," and clutching her hand, or he clutched his chest and died. So, that one's a little sad. Harriet Tubman, when she died, she gathered her friends and family around her, and they all together sang, "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." I like that one. And the blues singer, Bessie Smith, she died saying, "I'm going, but I'm going in the name of the Lord." And I like that one too. Because aren't we all? We're going, but hopefully we're going in the name of the Lord. So I bring those up because I was reminded of how close Jesus is to his death when I started this passage. How, as he's going to and from these different villages, he's preaching, and he's traveling, and he's with this band of people that he's gathered around him. And he knows he's going to die soon. He's one of the only people that really, truly knew when he would die. And what did he choose to do? He gathered his friends around him, and he chose to A, make himself known to them. Who am I? B, he chose to warn them. He gave them forewarning. I am going to die. It has to happen. And then later in the week, he takes 3 of his closest friends, and he gives them even more proof of who he is as the Son of God. So that's what I want to speak to today. I want to speak to that. I want to speak to Jesus' community, his tribe, his group of people. And so I want to start with just how Jesus gathered them together and made himself known. Because, I think everyone wants to be known, and everyone wants to be known deeply. But that's a scary thing, isn't it? For someone to know you inside and out, for someone to know all of your flaws, all of your mistakes, all of your little quirks, it's kind of scary. But what's even scarier is for someone to know all that about you and choose to not love you anymore because of it. See, we want to be known, but we also want to be loved. We want to be fully known and fully loved. It's also scary on the other side, where maybe we're fully loved, but we're not fully known. What's the point of being loved if that person doesn't know? So I think Jesus, being human in and of himself, I think Jesus felt loved. Jesus wanted to be known. He knew what community was. He knew how important it was. That's why we see in the beginning of each of the Gospels, one of the first things Jesus does in his ministry is to call people to join him, people to learn from him, people to preach alongside him, and later, people to carry that message whenever he was no longer here. See, in the beginning of the Bible, God creates the world. And we see that he creates one person. But then later he goes, it's not good for that guy. He needs something. God recognized that even though he was in relationship with his creation needed to be in relationship with his creation. So just as we need people in our lives, Jesus needed his people. And he called Peter, he called James, he called John, he called Andrew, he called all of these people. And throughout his ministry, he gathered more and more people who were believing in him, who were following him, who were willing and thirsty and hungry to learn from him. But we see time and time again, he sticks with the same group of 12. He keeps that tight, close-knit community. And so he turns to this close-knit community and he says, who do people say I am? He probably already knows. He just wants them to share. And they say, well, some people say John the Baptist. Some people say Elijah. Some people say another prophet. And this is big. Because in that moment we realize the world recognized that Jesus was a man of God. They recognized that he had some relationship with God. But they had yet to recognize that he was the Messiah. He was the person they'd been waiting on. And I don't blame them, because they'd been told stories of grandeur all their lives about this fabulous Messiah come to save them. And they thought he was going to be a warrior. They thought that he was going to ride in, and he was going to take down that Roman Empire, and he was going to give them back their Holy Land, and he was going to be a king, a great king, David. Not a common, ordinary man. Not a carpenter's son, certainly. So they recognized that Jesus had something there, that there was something special about him, but they didn't recognize exactly what. But Peter did. Peter, who had spent so much time with Jesus during his ministry. Peter, who is quick to think and speak and act, but sometimes not in the best of ways. Peter proclaims, you are the Son of God, you are the Savior, you are the Christ. And Jesus says, yes, but keep it to yourself right now. They're not ready. They're still looking for someone else. They're not ready. And I think it's important to see that Jesus does this because he needs them to know him. Before he dies, before he charges them to go out and preach to the world and spread the good news to everyone on the planet, he needs them to know who he is. And he needs to be able to trust that they will do this. He has a mission for them. He needs them to be able to go carry it out. And if they don't know who he truly is, then they can't do that. They have to be convinced themselves. So I think that's a really important thing that we see Jesus doing in the weeks before his death. And then we also see him explaining his death to them. He doesn't just say, oh, by the way, I'm going to die. Because duh, everyone dies. Jesus was human. He's going to die just like I'm going to die. He's going to die just like everyone else died. But Jesus knew when. And he knows that humans are sometimes a little bit dense. He didn't just tell them, I'm going to die. He told them the why behind the death. He needed them to know that there was a purpose to his death, that he wasn't just dying to die, that he wasn't just being a martyr or being someone that gives up. There was a purpose behind his death. And see, as a teacher, I love this because what Jesus is doing in schools, we would call that teaching bell to bell. He doesn't stop his ministry and give a little bit of downtime for his death and his resurrection and sending everyone else out to preach some more. No, he teaches up until the day that he dies. That's teaching bell to bell. The other thing is, it reminds me of schools and how we're told to teach in schools. So we've had lots and lots of legislation changes throughout the years. And in my 5.5 years of college, there have been a few big legislation changes when it comes to education, mainly on how teachers teach. So we see things like No Child Left Behind, which if you talk to any teacher, most likely you're going to get very negative response. It's a bad legislation. Everyone celebrated when it got overturned. But then you get things like Common Core. And once again, if you talk to older teachers especially, they're going to tell you they hate it. It's a new way of teaching. It's different. It's strange. But you know what? The more you look into it, and the more you look at the reason why they implemented it, it's for those kids. It's for those humans that need the why behind the process. Common Core, especially in math, is made so that the kids can see why something works out the way it does when you use that determinate formula. And some kids learn better that way. So Jesus, he gives the why behind his death. He lets them know that it's important, that he has to die because that's part of God's plan. That he's not doing it because he wants to. No one wants to die, especially not a horrendous death that Jesus had. He's doing it because he loves them, and because he loves the world enough to want to try and save all of them. See, something that they would have really deeply understood was the idea of sacrifice, because that was an annual tradition in the Jewish community. Jesus was saying, I am your sacrifice. And he needed them to know that. He needed them to know that he was not just leaving them. I think a lot of people struggle with abandonment issues. But when someone looks at you and tells you, this is why I have to go, I think it's a little easier. And Jesus isn't so godly that he is apart from human feelings. No, he had affection for these guys. He loved them. They were like his family. So of course he would want to make it easier on them. Of course he would. Just as it was hard for him on that cross when he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why has my Father turned from me? He didn't want his disciples to feel like that about him. And so he warned them about his death. And he explained to them that even though I'm going to be gone, you can still follow me. And here's how. It's not going to be easy. But anything worth having, is it really ever easy? It's not going to be fun sometimes. But that's okay. You can take up that cross. And you won't be bearing it alone. We know that now. And I think this is what Jesus was trying to explain to his disciples. I'm still going to be with you, even though I'm not physically present. See, we know that when we take up the cross of Jesus, when we take up that burden, whenever we choose to be a Christ follower, we have God with us all the time. And we know that we can turn to our neighbors, and we can turn to our friends and family, and they can be our supports as well. That's what Jesus is giving these people. He's telling them, yes, you have to do this hard thing. Life is full of hard things. But I'm going to be there. Look around. Your friends are going to be there. And they're going to help you carry this cross. They're going to help you bear it. And in the end, you're going to have an abundant life. You're not going to have a mess life. You're not going to have a so-so life. You're going to have an abundant life. Because you chose to do for his heart. And then we see Jesus. He whittles them down to one. I don't think it's coincidence that Peter, James, and John are the ones that Jesus takes up on the mountain with him. If you look back in the beginning of Mark, you see that Peter, James, and John are the first three that Jesus calls. They become the leaders of the group. If you look at a sports team, you might have a captain. You might have a co-captain. If you look at any organization, you might have the leader and then the assistant to the leader, and then you might have all of the little leaves that are below them. You have the king, and you might have all of his court that help advise him. Jesus had Peter, James, and John as his key leaders in the disciples. And so it's fair to say that he probably grew closer to them than he did the others. So when he takes them up on the mountain, he's not doing that just because he could only take 3. He could probably have taken all 12. But he took those 3 because those were the ones that were closest to him. And I truly believe that because of who they were, Jesus believed they would be the 3 biggest key factors in spreading his ministry. So he needed to be sure that they were sure. He didn't have to go up on the mountain and have the Transfiguration. That wasn't something that was necessary, per se, to God's plan of salvation. Unless you think about it from the human perspective. Like I said, we humans can be dense sometimes. And sometimes we need more than just words to convince us of something. Jesus knows that. And so Jesus takes his 3 close comrades. He takes them up on the mountain, and there he shows them his glory and his righteousness. He shows them how much like God he is. And their reaction is just amazing. Peter, who had just recently, 6 days beforehand, told him, "You are not going to die, Jesus. I will make sure of it." And Jesus had to say, "Shut up, Peter. Get behind me, Satan. I know what I'm talking about." Peter says, "Lord, let's build altars. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Let us celebrate this moment. These people who are huge monumental figures in my history that I've been told stories about since I was a baby are here in front of me. You are here in front of me, glowing like some angelic heavenly being. Let us celebrate this. Let us worship you. Let us praise you." And Jesus says, "No, it's not necessary." I also think the reason why we see this moment is because people were saying, "He's Elijah. He's a prophet. He's John the Baptist." See, if anyone was going to call Jesus a major prophet, come back from the dead, then the prophets they would choose would probably be Moses and Elijah and some of the other big name prophets that we see in the Bible, Jeremiah or Ezekiel or Daniel. And so we get a glimpse of Jesus saying, "These people are wrong." He doesn't have to use words to do it. He brings them here. There's one, there's the other. I'm still here. I'm not them. And I'm different from them. I'm the one glowing. I'm the one filled with glory. Believe me. And if that wasn't enough, we hear God speak from heaven. And he tells these guys something very similar to what we hear whenever Jesus gets baptized. "This is my beloved Son." And then he says, listen to what he says. If we are so dense that we need a voice from heaven to tell us, after Jesus himself has told us, "I am the Son of God. I am the Messiah." And after we see him glowing in all of God's glory, then God is like, "That is what I'll do. I will find a way to get you guys to believe this. Because I love you so much that I need you to believe this. So that one day I can continue to be in community. So that I can have a restored relationship. And so we hear that. We hear God say, this is my beloved son. This is who he is. In case you didn't realize it. In case you had doubts. Here I am declaring that this man is my son. And I want you to listen to him. Because what he has to say is important. What he has to say you need if you are going to live that life. And if you are going to have a relationship with me again. You see, the Bible, I always tell the students this. When we're down in junior church, I tell them, the Bible is not made up of little itty bitty stories. It's not like a nursery rhyme book, where each story is a separate entity. It's made up of many stories with an overarching theme that ties them all together. And if you go down to the junior church room, you'll see on the board. I've left it up there for weeks. My youth group called it L1 and L2. It's pretty much a huge chunk of what the Bible teaches. Love God. That's who we're supposed to be first and foremost. God. We see all throughout the New Testament that Jesus took time to be in community with God. Yes, he had his people with him, but he would go off by himself for a few hours to pray. He would reset by being in community with God. When we see him the night before he's crucified, he's in the garden. He brings his people. He goes further into the garden, bringing a few more people. But then he leaves them there, and he goes off by himself to be alone with God. That's who we need to be in community with first and foremost. And that's part of what I think this story is telling us about. It's telling us how we need to be with God. Jesus is setting an example for us. The other thing is L2, and that is just love others. See, Jesus did a really amazing job setting that example in the Bible. He loved his disciples. He shared his life with his disciples. But not only that, he loved that woman at the well that everyone ostracized. He loved the man who was lowered through his roof so that he could be healed. Instantly loved that man. He loved the sinners. He loved the prostitutes, the tax collectors. He loved the people that society pushed aside and said, you're not good. And then he turned around, and even though he was disappointed in them, he loved the people that were going after him. He loved the Pharisees. He loved the scribes. He loved the Jewish leaders and he loved the Roman leaders, even though those were the people that showed the least amount of love to him. And even as he was dying, we see him say, Father, forgive them. He loves his murderers so much. He asks for their forgiveness as he is one. See, Jesus, he gives this beautiful example. And as he's doing so, he's surrounded by these folk. They get the chance to see what real community is like. What real agape love is like. Agape love is love without condition. That means, I love you now, I love you tomorrow, I love you 30 years down the line. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say. You can cut me out of your life completely. I still love you. And God does. So, the disciples get to see that. And they're privy to the intimate moments of that community when they travel with Jesus, when they watch him teach, when they watch him perform miracles, when they watched him feed the 5,000, when they watched him raise Lazarus from the dead. They're privy to that community. So much so that they got to see Jesus cry. They got to see him wrestle with the idea of his own death in the garden. And they were there and he was arrested to be taken to that. So guys, a lot of people might take this passage a different way. But as I was reading this passage, all I could think about was that community. All I could think about was how God wanted us to be. And I think it's kind of funny. I think it's a little bit ironic that this is what called out today. This is what I felt God wanted me to say to you guys today. Because I am losing a community when I leave this church. We're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to live this life alone. We're not meant to struggle through this faith alone. God knows that, and God makes sure we're not alone. He's always with us. But just like he did with Adam in the garden, he gave us other things to create community. He gave us friends and family. He gave us coworkers, and he gave us neighbors. But even more than that, he gave us the church. There's a reason why the church does not refer to this building. It doesn't refer to the place where people gather. That's just a building. The church is people that gather there. It's the people that you know you can go to. It's the hand you can hold, the shoulder you can cry on. It's the people who rejoice with you whenever good things happen. And it's the people that comfort you in your sorrow. Stephen talks about how he got to do so much wonderful things with this group. Celebrate weddings and births, mourn deaths. That's what a community does. That is what the church does. And if you look around, you'll find that hand to hold. You'll find that shoulder to cry on or that person to wipe your tears. And you might also find someone who can mentor you, who can help you grow in your faith. And on the flip side, you'll also find people who may be looking to you for guidance, and for help, to answer questions, all those whys that we have about the Bible and about God. There might be someone in this room that's looking to you to help answer those questions, to help guide them, help them grow. We need that. So today I want to end with encouragement to you. I want to be an encouragement to you, but I also want to challenge you. Because what good is talking about all this if we don't strive to continue to grow ourselves, right? I want to encourage you because this group right here is filled with so many different people. Do not forget your community that you have here. Do not take it for granted. Lean into this community because it is God-given and it is a good. But also, don't make it exclusionary. Invite people into this community. One of my favorite things this church does is the fish dinners because it invites the community out there to this community in here. Do not exclude those people. They need this community as much or even more than you do. Guys, I want to thank you for being my community. We were trying to figure it out earlier this morning, and I think it's been about 5 years of me being a part of your community. And I want to thank you for that. It's been wonderful. I have been encouraged. I have been challenged. I have grown. I have gotten to celebrate some wonderful times. And I've been sad with you with losses that have happened. So thank you. I hope that I can always be a part of your community, working here or not. That's all I've got for you guys. I'm not going to stay up here and talk, because if I do, I might start crying, and I'm not going to do that today. So, happy Sunday.